I would label him as the most direct winger in Europe.
Yeah, and then we all know what Vinny Jr.'s become. So those three are very, very high established companies.
Yes, Mbappe was the comp.
A player who is in some elite company at a young age, both statistically but also off the eye test, and a player who is already attracting interest from the likes of Brighton, but even the major clubs like Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund as well. Spencer, who are we speaking about today?
Yes, Kish, we are going to be talking about Said El Mala. And the big reason why I think these clubs have such a big interest in him is I would label him as the most direct winger in Europe this season. The rate at which he can get shots from just about any angle, right? From out wide, from coming more centrally in transition versus more settled blocks. As well, he's not so much of a creator. You can see the quote that I used, pass, just get the rebound. That was Kobe Bryant's quote, but I think that's also his mentality. But he's a decent enough crosser if there really isn't an avenue to drive towards the box as well. Like I mentioned, when you look for a direct dribbler, it's not so much just that they are like heads down trying to shoot, but also that they're doing so on their own volition. They're able to drive at defenders and win and are willing to do so really, really frequently, which characterized for him over here with the dribble rate in the 93rd percentile among U21 wingers in top five leagues. He is among the most, not so much the best, he's really good at dribbling, but among the more direct in terms of every time he gets the ball, he's looking to take on his defender. As well, good runner in space, involved in the final phase in terms of volume of touches in the penalty area, and he doesn't have like the highest sprint speed, but I think he's 13th or 14th, has the 13th or 14th fastest sprint speed this season in the Bundesliga. So not like elite pace, but maybe just one elite. And also he has the mentality to be able to push back lines with his running.
Yeah, and I think El Marla's such an interesting player. He is like the kind of player who's so relentless. Every time he picks up the ball, his first thought is to goal, to goal, to goal, to goal. And he has that kind of goldfish memory that I talk about in wingers where he can lose the ball, but he'll get it again and try it again. And he's a player who's going to wear down his fullback over 90 minutes because of that relentlessness. He's got a very interesting gait as well. I think the way he runs and dribbles is quite unique. It's not like your Jeremy Doku's or your really like nippy type high acceleration wingers. I think he's someone that, like you said, also can flourish in big spaces. I think he can really explode in terms of if you give him more spaces or if he's going to play as more of like a out to in player where he can run beyond the fullback and centre back in that little channel. I think with his ball striking ability and his actual finishing ability as well in terms of his composure and calmness in front of goal, I think he can really be a top goal scoring winger. And I think that is where his ceiling for me is going to be as a winger who really puts up striker numbers.
Yeah, I thought that perhaps even he might end up going more down the. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head, but maybe even more like a central forward, more so. Not like an out and out striker, but just like a really, really good channel running central
Like an
forward.
Mbappe,
Yeah,
basically.
yes, Mbappe was the comp. Left wing to center forward. Yes, that could absolutely be a path that he goes down. Um, when I say that he's the most direct winger in Europe, it's not just because he looks like it is. If you look at the data, it is also the case. Here we have all strikers and wingers in top five leagues. On the x-axis down here, you can see their dribble rate. So over here means that they have a higher percentage of their passes received that turn into dribbles. And over here, it's a higher, this is just shots, just purely the number of shots that they take. You can see, so this is not the PSG Vitinha, this is the Genoa Vitinha, but you can see some of the wingers, center forwards that have a higher percentage of dribbles that they take on for each pass received. Then you can see over here, other kinds of strikers, also Lamine Yamal, Nusa, where it's also very direct wingers that dribble a lot and take a lot of shots. And then you can see Almala up here, just clearly in a class of his own in terms of his ability to beat his man and at least willingness to beat on his man and then find shots. It really is like I said, he's the most direct winger in Europe. It's not just the eye test that says so, but the data backs it up too.
He is a player who is going to put up numbers regardless. But to be a young winger who is constantly getting shots off at this age is only a good sign. Because it's not easy to create your own shots in the senior game in the top five leagues. It's really not easy to do that. So a very, very interesting winger.
Yeah, and one of the things that you'd said earlier about how, maybe he could get like the selfish tag. He's playing for Cologne. I don't recall exactly where they are in the table, but they're not towards the top. They're not one of like the big challengers within the league. He is the biggest spark within his team by like a comfortable margin. So part of it is probably just one that he's maybe asked to saddle that sort of a burden. And when you look at players that put up these kinds of numbers in teams that are not necessarily the strongest within like their league selection, to be putting up these kinds of numbers, to me it reads more like, hey, he's the one that the team has decided is going to take the onus, and he is delivering currently.
The questions that people will be asking about whether he can take a step up to a top team is that they play a lot in transition. And his skill set, I think, really suits transitions because he can carry it long distances. Once he gets in his stride, he's really difficult to stop. And it becomes a bit of a one-man show for Cone, like because he has the freedom to be able to drive them up the pitch. And if he's receiving the ball, out on this touchline and his team are quite deep, it's up to him to kind of get them up the pitch, and he can go on these mazy runs and get shots off where there's space. I think where recruitments might worry about him and his translation is more when, let's say, you're playing against a more lower block and you have to be a bit more meticulous and neat and intricate. That would be my concern with his translation. But the signs are really good, and obviously there's still plenty of teams that use space. I think the Premier League is very transitional at the moment. Even the top teams aren't necessarily playing low blocks as much as they were. I think he's a player that definitely suits the Premier League where it's at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with your assessment that he's pretty well suited for the Premier League, especially like a team like Brighton. It makes sense. You look at sort of the wingers that they bring in, like Minte and Mitoma. They're very direct, transitional type wingers. I think maybe that could be more of like his route to playing more centrally if he plays off of a player like Harry Kane, because Harry Kane he's many things, but he's also a fantastic facilitator for a center forward. So having that sort of a presence to be able to play off of and run off of would help, I think, in lower blocks or against lower blocks. He'd obviously destroy in transitions for them too. This last thing I wanted to share was two comparisons. One is a filter of some of his strongest attributes, and then another one's just like the complete profile comparison. So the top one, if you look at the filtered comparison list, it is the U21 wingers in top five leagues to have hit 3 shots per 90, 4 attacking penalty area touches per 90, and a dribble rate of greater than 40%. And that list is Federico Chiesa, back when he was at Fiorentina, Rafael Leao, he's still at Milan, but when he was a little bit younger, Vinicius Jr. when he first made the jump over to Real Madrid, and Said Mala now. So really, really an elite list of direct goal-scoring wingers that El Mala is in terms of his age to data profile, and just the marks that he's at right now. It puts him in really, really, really impressive territory.
And I want to remind people that Chiesa before the injuries was a scary, scary player.
Yeah, if you don't remember what Federico Chiesa was, go back and watch some highlights from like 2019, 2020. He was probably one of the top 5 wingers in the world for a bit before the injuries really got to him. Yeah, the other filter here is it's a search for El Mala just based on like all of the pizza chart that I shared at the beginning. It's just like a comparison to who has the most similar pizza chart to him, and this is all wingers of all. I think it's of all ages. No, this would be U21 or U23. So younger wingers, top 5 leagues since 2018. So you can look at the types of players on a holistic basis. Obviously, Vinicius Jr. pops up there. Another interesting one, Matthias Tell pops up there. Jamie Gittins is in there. Vinicius Jr. is in there a second time. So some names also, Chukwueze didn't pan out. There's always a range. There's no guarantee that a player is going to be good. But if you look at the names within the proximity search, there's some okay players and also some really good ones. So I think that's the range that Almala has out in front of him.
Yeah, 100%. Spencer, thanks so much for bringing El Mala to everyone's attention. And I think, learned a little bit more about him as well. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Please do make sure you subscribe, comment down below which player you want us to analyze next, and we will see you next time.